The first time Elias Crow heard the screaming, he thought it was just the wind tearing through the cottonwoods along the creek, the same way it had done every night since his wife was buried on the hill behind the old ranch. But then the scream came again, sharper this time, broken by a child's sob, and something inside the widowed cowboy that had been dead for 3 long years suddenly twitched back to life. Elias was a man carved hollow by loss. His shoulders stooped not from age but from grief, his eyes carrying the quiet of a man who had buried the only person who ever made the world feel warm, and he lived alone now, keeping to himself, doing odd ranch work for nearby homesteads, speaking little, trusting no one. But that night as he rode past the rundown shack near Red Hollow, he saw a lantern crash to the dirt and heard a man's drunken roar followed by a girl crying for him to stop. And before Elias even realized what he was doing, his horse was already turning toward the sound. The door of the shack flew open with one kick from Elias's boot, revealing a thin, bruised girl curled on the floor with her arms over her head while a heavy-set man with a whiskey bottle in his fist spun around in rage, shouting that this was none of Elias's business, that she was his stepdaughter and he'd teach her how to behave. But Elias didn't shout back or threaten him, he simply stepped forward, his voice low and steady, telling the man to drop the bottle and step away from the girl. And when the man laughed and swung, Elias moved like a man who had nothing left to lose, disarming him with brutal efficiency, slamming him into the wall and leaving him unconscious on the dirt floor. The girl didn't scream when Elias knelt beside her, she didn't cry either, she just stared at him with eyes that had already seen too much of the world's cruelty, and when he offered his coat, she flinched like she expected pain instead of kindness, a reaction that cut Elias deeper than any knife ever could. He took her away from that place before dawn, riding slowly so she wouldn't fall, learning her name was Clara and that her mother had died the previous winter, leaving her alone with a man who drank away his wages and beat her when the bottle ran dry. And though Elias told himself he was only taking her to the nearest town, something in the way she clung to the saddle horn, something in her silence, reminded him of how empty the ranch felt when he returned at night to no voice, no light, no reason to keep going. Rumors spread fast in frontier towns, and by the time Elias brought Clara to the ranch, people were already whispering. Some called him a hero, others called him a fool for getting involved, and a few muttered darker things, because a widowed cowboy taking in a beaten girl made easy gossip for small minds. But Elias didn't care, he fed her, gave her a clean bed, and for the first time in years, he cooked more than one plate of food. Clara barely spoke at first, jumping at loud sounds, sleeping curled tight like she was bracing for a blow, but Elias was patient, speaking softly, never raising his hand, showing her through actions that this place was different, and slowly, painfully slowly, she began to change, helping around the ranch, smiling shyly when Elias praised her work, laughing one afternoon when a calf escaped the pen and they chased it together. A sound that stopped Elias in his tracks because he hadn't heard laughter on his land since his wife died. What Elias didn't know was that the stepfather had survived, and worse, he had told the sheriff a twisted story, claiming Elias had kidnapped the girl, and one afternoon a posse rode up to the ranch, guns visible, suspicion heavy in the air, while Clara hid behind Elias with terror flooding her face, and for a moment Elias wondered if doing the right thing would finally cost him everything. But when the sheriff demanded the truth, something unexpected happened. Clara stepped forward, her voice shaking but strong, and told them everything, every beating, every night she prayed not to wake up, every scar she carried, and the men listening shifted uncomfortably as they realized the truth. The sheriff arrested the stepfather on charges of abuse that could no longer be ignored, and the town that once whispered now stood silent, ashamed, while Elias was cleared of wrongdoing. But the real shock came weeks later when a letter arrived from a distant relative of Clara's mother, demanding the girl be sent away east to live with strangers who wanted her inheritance more than her well-being. And this time, Elias didn't hesitate, he rode straight into town, stood before the judge, and filed papers to become Clara's legal guardian, a move that stunned everyone, because the quiet widower who claimed he wanted nothing from life was suddenly fighting harder than he ever had for someone else. The judge approved it, the town watched, and slowly the story of the widowed cowboy and the beaten girl became something else entirely, a reminder that even broken people can become someone's shelter, that love doesn't always arrive gentle and easy, sometimes it rides in with scars and grief and a past that hurts to remember, but still chooses to protect. Years later, people would say that saving Clara saved Elias too, that the ranch felt alive again, that the widowed cowboy learned how to smile without guilt, and that the girl who once flinched at kindness grew into a strong young woman who called him Pa with pride. And if this story moved you, if you believe that courage can change lives and that even in the harshest times humanity still finds a way, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more powerful, emotional Wild West stories like this are coming, stories that remind us why hope is worth holding on to, even when the world tries its hardest to take it away.